Well, I'm joined by McNeese head football coach Gary Goff. Coach, you guys are 4-3, your best 7-game start to a season since 2018. I know this past week, obviously, probably not what you guys were hoping for, but it seems like the bye has come at a perfect time for you guys.
Yeah, very much needed bye. We're a tired and beat up team right now. So, but like we were speaking before the show, this is almost like the 12th week we've been going since the week 0 plus camp. So it's a very much needed bye week.
Yeah, and not only that, but dealing obviously with a lot of injuries on both sides of the ball. Clifton, obviously one of those injuries. Is that kind of the main goal with this bye week before you head to UIW?
Yeah, our athletic trainer, his staff's done a great job, and he gives me a report yesterday, and I count 27 people on this injury report. And a lot of it's just bumps and bruises. There's very few major injuries, but still they add up, and it's part of the game, right? It's as expected in the football season, especially at this juncture of the season. But, we need to get healthy this week, and we got a very difficult schedule ahead of us still. We're halfway through this long road warrior trip, as you can say. But no, we're still excited, and I'm anxious to get these guys back in 2 weeks and start playing again.
You said it right there. It's kind of a crazy schedule. It changed 3 times before the season, but you guys don't have a home game almost for another month, and you've played 2 on the road at Weber State in this past week. What are kind of the challenges, and what are maybe some of the advantages to that, if there are any?
Yeah, I feel like, we try very hard to make sure that the guys are focused on 1 week at a time, right? 'Cause you start looking at the schedule, and then you start realizing you're not home for an entire month, and that can weigh on you a little bit. But I think the guys have handled it pretty well. Obviously, we had a little stumble last week, but we got to just focus on us. And sometimes these road trips can be a good thing, but we're still kind of a young team, and you never know how they're going to respond, sometimes going that far away. And, the Utah trip was a great trip for us. I was very, very proud of them. I thought they handled that great. But we followed that up, a big emotional victory, and it was a big letdown for us last week. And we got to be better than that. But, it's a long stretch, and the difficult schedule really comes from our conference changing so late. So it's nobody's fault. It's just we got a chance to add a very good team back into our conference in Stephen F. Austin, and there was a lot of schedules that had to be changed in order to do that. So it's just kind of the hand we were dealt with, and we just got to make sure that we're focused 1 week at a time and deal with it.
You mentioned the Houston Christian game. I don't want to harp on that because it feels like kind of a bit of an outlier when you look at the season as a whole. But what went wrong with that week? You said earlier in the week it might be a trap game, and evidently it unfortunately was.
It was. Yeah, it's something we talked about from day one with the guys, and we talked about it every single day. And, I've done this long enough to know you have a big emotional win like that, and that was kind of a breakthrough win for our program. And it's sometimes easy to relax and think we got this figured out. And we thought that from a coaching standpoint all week about, hey, this is going to be their Super Bowl. They're going to play us extremely hard, and they just want a big road game themselves. And unfortunately, that's exactly what caught us, a trap game. And we had 6 starters not playing. I don't want to use that as an excuse at all, because we had 5 starters not play the week before at Utah, and we did a very good job with that game. So we had some conversations yesterday with the team about that, and a lot of them fessed up. Coach, you were right. We kind of didn't listen. But still, it kind of falls on us coaches. We got to do a better job than that. And it happened all across college football last weekend, right? It happened to your team, too.
Let's not go there. Let's not go there.
But I know those schools coach against it, too. But sometimes you're dealing with young adults. They don't take some of those things serious, but hopefully we learned that lesson, and we get better because of it.
I'm already taking enough crap from one McNeese coach. Will Wade texted me immediately after the game, so I don't need it from another. But sometimes you kind of have to get punched in the mouth to really find out who you are and kind of recover from that, and sometimes you can use it for good. We saw it with McNeese basketball after they lost to Southeastern last year, and they recovered and didn't lose again until March Madness.
Right.
What can you guys kind of take from that and maybe use it for good going after the bye?
Yes, like I told the guys, I feel like we're on the brink of having a really, really good football team, and we can't relax. We got to have that chip on our shoulder we've talked about all year and continue being in attack mode, but have the right attitude and right mind frame day in, day out. And, sometimes it's easy for them to get caught up. And again, we talked about that all week last week, hey, don't pay attention to all this noise. It's good noise right now. You're getting a lot of attention, but we don't need to focus on that. We'll worry about that when the season's over. So, we've got to learn that lesson. And, these next 2 weeks, we're playing the top two teams in our conference, right? And it's going to be a very challenging game, but we got to learn from our mistakes. We got to go out there and compete for 4 quarters.
And players specifically, Camden was obviously one. Camden, I keep saying Camden. Clifton was one of the big additions for you guys this offseason, and we've kind of seen what you guys were hoping to see out of him through a couple games. Obviously, this past week, dealing with an injury wasn't his best game, but how would you assess his play so far?
Well, I thought he's played great. I've said this all along. He's a guy that's played a lot of football. He's able to see some things on the field through experience. He has the ability to get us into a better play call. Our quarterbacks are taught, we might call this play, but you might see something and the play needs to go over here. And he's done a good job managing that all season so far. And he's a weapon. He can make every throw on the field. He can run. He's big. He's powerful. But we got to get the guy healthy. That's the most important thing right now. And he wasn't healthy enough last week, and obviously it showed. So we got to be patient with him and make sure he gets healthy.
And obviously the running backs you added another running back in TC, and
Yeah.
You've had a lot of running back. It's kind of been running back by committee. Joshan had a rough start to the season, but definitely picked it up at Weber State. What's kind of the state of that position, and how do you feel at running back going into the last stretch?
Well, a little beat up in that room as well. We did get Colby Ham back last week. He's been out the previous 3 weeks. TC a little banged up. A lot of those guys. But that's kind of the nature of the position, right? Those running backs are going to carry the ball a lot. They're going to get beat up some. Even Joshan has been beat up some. And so, again, this bye week's very important for that room to get back healthy. And I kind of think it's kind of the way of college football now. It's not like the old days where you had one premier back and he's the one that carried the load. And, last year we got down to our 5th back. This year we've already leaned heavily on our 3rd and 4th at times, So it's kind of by committee. And we said this from the get-go that these guys that, they're carrying the ball 10 or 15 times, but if somebody gets hot, they're going to stay in for the next series. But they've all been very, very important to our success so far. I mean, even D'Lo's another guy that's a big physical back who's been beat up a little bit. So it's been good to have a deep cupboard right there, because if somebody gets banged up, we're able to play somebody else.
At wide receiver, obviously you were dealing with an injury to Curtis for a couple weeks. He returned, but it really feels like Jermichael has kind of taken over that wide receiver 1 role. What have you seen out of him and kind of that wide receiver core as a whole?
Yeah, J. Mike has really turned into a playmaker for us. He's somebody that the quarterbacks depend on and they start looking for if we need a big play. And that's kind of contagious. He's had really 3 really good games the last 3, and I think because of that, it's kind of elevated the play of Cam Senegal, and Jonathan Harris has had some big plays here of late. It was nice to get Curtis DeVille back, kind of get him back in the swing of things. He's been beat up a little bit. And then Jihad Marks, same thing. He missed a few games, so getting him back last week was a good thing. So that room is coming along. I'm pretty excited about where they've kind of developed over the last 3 or 4 games, and I continue to expect them to raise that bar and get better.
Defensively, dealing with a lot of injuries. Once again, the bye week coming at the perfect time, like we were mentioning. But what have you seen out of your defense? Kind of the strengths and maybe the weaknesses so far.
Well, I mean, the strengths, I think that they've played some pretty good ball. We've had them in good positions. There's been a little bit of bend but don't break at times. But missing your top 3 tacklers, that's a little bit of a hit you take. But all 3 of those guys should be back, after this bye week. Even Boogsy is going to be back. He'll start doing some light practicing, maybe towards the end of this week even. So I think on that side of the ball, we'll get everybody back, which is a great sign. I mean, missing Micah Davey, the last 4 or 5 games has been pretty difficult, but I'll give him a lot of credit. He's kind of turned into that student coach for us and kind of kept those younger guys that are playing that position now focused in and helping them with their assignments. But really proud of how the secondary has played, really proud of how the defensive line's played. Overall, that defense, I think, has been in attack mode. And, we got to get those guys healthy and get back out there and start right back where we left off the first part of the season. I thought they did a phenomenal job. And we didn't play complimentary football last week, and that's what it all comes down to. And outside of last week's game, I think we did that for the first 5 games of the year.
Is that kind of how you guys are taking that? Last week was an outlier, learn from it, and
we have to. You got to learn something from it, right? It's just one game. That one game doesn't defy us by no means. But you got to learn that lesson. It's a hard pill to swallow, that's for sure. But you got to move on, and we did that yesterday with the guys. We talked about the issues with everything leading up to that game, and even during that game, and the how do you handle that? How do you handle that adversity? And there's a lot of things we can do better, and we're going to do better. But you've got to learn from it and move on.
You mentioned Micah a second ago. I don't want to press you for updates, but is there any kind of update on him? Do you expect him back at any point?
I expect full clearance by the time we get to next week's game. Absolutely. I'm pretty excited about that. So.
Obviously, that's a big boost to your defense. And how excited is he? Is he just chomping at the bit?
Well, he's been chomping at the bits the last 2 weeks, and he really wanted to play up there at Weber State. And then last weekend, he really wanted to play. But I listened to the doctor, and we want to be very smart and careful about it because we still got a lot of football ahead of us, and I'm 100% confident, that he'll be ready for next week's game.
You guys are right in the mix of it. You've played 2 conference games. 3 teams haven't even played 1, but are you guys keeping an eye on that, or is it just play the game in front of you and what happens?
Yeah, I really think you got to play the game in front of you. I really do. We know it's a great conference, and there's a lot of games to be played, and we can't worry about, hey, did you see that team beat this team earlier? Because almost all of our games are night games. Most of the conference is done by the time we play, right? So it's about the Cowboys. It's about us being focused on us one day at a time and one game at a time. And as long as we continue doing that, we're going to be in good shape. But if we start paying attention to everything else and oh no, we lost that game, but look at what so-and-so did here or there, then it'll catch up with you real fast. And, I'm hard on the guys about if we can just get this much better 1 week at a time, and we got a chance to be pretty special.
You have 2 really tough road tests coming up, UIW, Nichols, return home, and then you have another bye. What would make this 3-week stretch before that bye, what would make that a success?
Well, we're playing to the best teams in the conference, right? And it'd be great to have an excellent showing against both those guys. I think we're capable of winning every single game on our schedule. But again, we got to focus on us and eliminate some of the mistakes that we've had and learn from some of the tough lessons that we've had. But this stretch down the road here, it's going to determine who the conference championship is and who gets in the playoffs and who doesn't. But again, it's very important we focus on Incarnate Word, nobody else. And I know there's another great game after that one, but guys got to be focused, and we got a 2-week jump on these guys, right? And we're focused on them right now as they're worried about this week's game. So that gives us a little bit of advantage.
And we'll get into the UIW game next week, obviously on Monday with the press conference and everything. But obviously the main focus is getting healthy and not suffering any more injuries before that game.
Right.
But what are kind of maybe the key points you guys are trying to address before going to UIW?
Yeah, so we've shortened practice up a little bit this week. They'll get an extra day off, obviously this coming weekend. I got to get these guys healthy, so we've done a lot of extra treatment. We've added yoga into the mix, and then in the weight room, kind of added some light lifting, really to get some flexibility and stuff back. But I think it's important this week we get healthy, but we're also focusing on fundamentals, So this morning's practice was all about fundamentals and special teams, and we're going to continue doing a lot of that all week long. We are going to start introducing the game plan piece by piece. Obviously, we're nowhere near being finished with that. But we will have areas of the game plan done, so that way we can practice each morning on some part of it. But I think this week, this morning's practice was great so far. This week we've got to focus on, hey, knowing where we've coming from, knowing the hard work we put in to get to this point, and being laser-like focused on 1 week at a time.
You just said knowing where we came from. It seems like this year's team is a lot more together than last year's. Obviously, winning helps that, but
it does.
At what has kind of been the difference in the locker room and kind of the team playing like a team rather than maybe worrying about individual success or whatever it might be?
Yeah, I think we changed a lot in the offseason. I'm a big leadership development person. We continued that. We didn't change anything there. But we kind of forced the guys to be together a lot more. Throughout the summer, we had a cookout every Wednesday. Team had to be there, and all through camp, we had team functions where the entire team had to be there and sit with opposite sides of the ball and do some silly stuff, right? But I really think it's our guys maturing a little bit. You know, we're not quite as young as we were. Even the new guys we brought in, we did a lot of evaluations, making sure we know they got the talent, but are they going to be the right character, the right person that fits in, you know, to who we want to be and what we're about? And there was a lot of guys we turned down because of that. But I think we got a good mix right now on the roster, guys that are bought in, that really, really care, and not care about just their success, but care about the overall team success and then their teammate to their left and to their right. So it's an ongoing battle, right? Everybody can be selfish at a certain time here or there, but I do believe they care about the success of the team more than they do about their individual stats, and that's pretty important.
And lastly, after each win, we've seen the locker room pictures of them hoisting you up.
Yeah.
Seems like you're having a lot of fun. What coming after last season? What for you personally? What has this year been like?
Well, I mean, you got to remember this. You know, I really got into this to help change young adults' lives, the game of football, and that's why we do this. I know the wins are very important, and those matter, but seeing these young men grow, come together, have some reward after all their hard work, just it means the world to me and the coaching staff, and that's what you do it for right there. It's not for us coaches. I mean, we're going to coach for a long time, whether it's here or somewhere else. It's about these young men and having a positive impact and showing them that teamwork matters, and you know, there's not any individuals in this world that got somewhere without a lot of help from others, and so seeing these guys take that joy and excitement and celebrating together means everything. And I know to some it might seem silly, and what's the big deal? They didn't win the Super Bowl. It is a big deal because these young men have put a lot of hard work into this. Their families have put a lot of hard work into this. The coaching staff, the administrators, everybody's put a lot of hard work into this. So it's about the student athlete, and as long as you remember that, then you'll celebrate with them when they have those big victories, and nothing else really matters.
Well, Coach, I appreciate you joining me once again. McNeese has a much-needed bye week this week before they hit the road next week to resume their schedule as they hit the road to play Incarnate Word.